Hello, this is Ray Capote for the Misfits Mystique. Cheers. And welcome. So on this episode, I'm going to be covering the events of December of 1959. In the last episode, I discussed when Ralph Roberts, Marilyn Monroe's masseur, massage therapist, gave her first massage. And this was at the Beverly Hills Hotel where Marilyn and her husband, writer Arthur Miller, were staying. And Roberts went out there, and the moment he touched Marilyn, he starts with the left arm, he gets a shock. And he studied Swedish massage therapy in New York, and his instructor said in his lifetime that only happened to him once. You move forward in that massage session, and Roberts was daydreaming about the book that he was reading by Willa Cather. And right at that moment, Marilyn asked him, "Do you know of an author by the name of Willa Cather?" That's the first ESP moment. The second one is in that same session. Towards the end, Roberts is thinking, again, daydreaming, that when he gets back to New York, he really wants to go see Janice Mars. It's one of his favorite singers. She sang at a nightclub called The Back Room, BAQ. And right at that moment, Marilyn asks him, "Do you know of an actress and singer by the name of Janice Mars?" And his heart skipped a beat again. And then he started thinking, can Marilyn read my mind? So apparently, folks told him early on when he grew up in North Carolina that he had some ESP capabilities, and he realized that Marilyn also had that. And as they go forward, as we go over this book, she read his mind and he read her mind. So they had that connection, and she said that he was the brother that she never had. So in this episode, we go to December. They don't specify the exact dates. This book by Ralph Roberts is outstanding. It's written in like diary form, Mimosa. And his nephew, Hap Roberts, wrote it with Chris Jacobs, who's an IT specialist. They gathered all of Roberts' manuscripts over the years when he knew Marilyn, and then he wrote manuscripts in the early 80s to set the record straight, because a lot of people were writing puff pieces about her, these books from people who never met her. So, wonderful book. So we go to now just a month later, and it's December of 1959. Roberts gave Marilyn a series of massages in November. He's back in December now at the Beverly Hills Hotel, where she stayed at a bungalow with her husband, Arthur Miller. He gets to the lobby. He probably had to check in, and the bellhop said to Ralph, "Mr. Roberts, Mrs. Miller," and by the way, Marilyn Monroe always would use a pseudonym. So like on her mailbox, wherever she lived, they would have a different name. And she didn't use a different one here, but she would never say, Marilyn Monroe is here or there. She would say Mrs. Miller, so that nobody would know she's up there and be bothered. So so I'm guessing the bellhop only knew there's a Mrs. Miller up there. And the bellhop says, "Mrs. Miller wanted me to give you this." He hands Ralph Roberts a bottle of vodka, which is his favorite drink, his favorite alcoholic beverage. And the bellhop said, "Unfortunately, she can't make it tonight. She's running late, but she was wondering if you can come back tomorrow at the same time, 9 p.m. He usually would give her massages at 9 p.m. He said, sure, no problem. He comes back the following night, and Marilyn, for the massage therapy, and Marilyn tells him, Ralph, I'm really sorry I couldn't make it. I hope the vodka kept you warm last night. We're talking, this is December, even though it's Los Angeles. And she said, the reason I couldn't make it is because I was at George Cukor's house. So George Cukor is a well-known veteran director in Hollywood. He did Gaslight with Ingrid Bergman. He did The Philadelphia Story with Jimmy Stewart and many others. And he was directing this current project that Marilyn was doing, this current movie called Let's Make Love. So Roberts was in Los Angeles, okay, just to give you the backstory. If you recall, in one of my previous episodes, Roberts was walking down 54th Street and approached Park Avenue in New York. Okay, he was at the actor's studio, so was Marilyn, and so was this actress named Judy Holliday. And he was the masseur to many actors, including Marilyn Monroe, Lee Strasberg, Paula Strasberg, their daughter Susan Strasberg, Montgomery Clift, and he was also Judy Holliday's masseur. So he's walking with her, and she just got done doing the show that night on Broadway called Bells Are Ringing. And I'm guessing Roberts had a small part in that, but he was definitely her masseur at the time. Marilyn is crossing 54th Ave. She sees Judy Holliday and says, Judy, I can't believe it. I mean, Mrs. Holliday, she was very respectful. I love your work. And Judy reciprocated and said, I love what you do. And Marilyn kept walking. And that was one of two times that Roberts crossed paths with Marilyn. And then, as I stated in the other episode, he met her in person at Lee Strasberg's kitchen in his apartment on Central Park West, where he sees Marilyn, and he didn't know it was her though, and Susan says, that's Marilyn Monroe. So what my point is that I think he got this part in the Hollywood production of Bells Are Ringing, probably because of his connection to Judy Holliday. So if you go forward, on one of these sessions, when he goes over to her bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel, Arthur Miller approaches Ralph Roberts and says, Ralph, would you be interested in doing a small role in this new screenplay I'm writing called The Misfits? And it would be a small part as an Indian. And right at that moment, Marilyn says, oh, this is great, because apparently she didn't know about it. So Ralph, you would get a part in the movie, and you can go up there to Reno with us, and you can give me massages every night. So I thought that was great. So she was very excited with the possibility of Ralph going up there, because these massages were very relaxing to her, and she had chronic insomnia, back pains, and Roberts had this magic touch, and they had this connection also with the ESP. And she said he was like the brother she never had, so she was very excited to have him possibly go up there. And of course Roberts would accept. He would take anything in that movie, and also for the privilege of helping Marilyn with the massages. So on one of these weekends that in December of '59, Roberts ends up going to Palm Springs with Marilyn's acting coach, Paula Strasberg. And they go out there and they stay at the Parker's Hotel. And this was owned by Virginia Field and Willard Parker. And they were a Hollywood couple. They were both actors. And they had a wonderful oil painting collection they looked at. and they had some drinks, they had dinner, and Paula stated, "We got to bring Marilyn out here. She would love it, and it would be very relaxing to her." And she hands Roberts a preliminary script of the Misfits, and she said, "Ralph, you can't show this to anyone. This is top secret. But I wanted you to see the screenplay and look at the part you're going to be playing as well." So Roberts looks it over that evening, and I believe this was Saturday night. Looks it over, and then the following morning, he meets up with Paula Strasberg again. And Paula said, "Hey Ralph, what'd you think of the screenplay of the Misfits?" And he said, "Wow, it's wonderful. It is an amazing story, amazing script." And Paula said, "Yeah, it's a masterpiece, isn't it?" And Robert said, "I don't think I have a lot to offer, this part for this Indian that he's going to be playing, because if you keep in mind, the Indian, if you see the movie, he's just standing there. They actually got a real Native American. And in the end, he ended up getting the role of the ambulance driver. He had only like one line. This is when Montgomery Clift fell off the horse, and he goes over there as he's walking out, and he holds his arm, and he tells Perce, which is Montgomery Clift's character, "Hey, it looks like you got hit by the wrong end of the horse." And so I thought, even though he had just that one piece of dialogue, at least it wasn't the Indian where he said nothing at all. He's just standing there, and Marilyn and Gable are just walking by with Montgomery Clift and Thelma Ritter and Eli White. They're just walking by in the crowd, and they just show a quick shot of the Indian. So we got a nicer role, a better role, and then he's going to be able to give Marilyn these massages. So in that same conversation, and this is the next morning, Sunday morning, out in Palm Springs, Paula said, "Yeah, this is a dream role for Marilyn. The part of playing Rosalind Tabor, and playing this girl, I believe, somewhat kept her marriage together," quote unquote. And Roberts was thinking to himself, "I wonder what she meant by that," because he did not know. By this time, Monroe was already having trouble in her marriage. And as we discussed in my other episodes, this screenplay was written as a Valentine's gift to his wife, Marilyn Monroe. That's Arthur Miller wrote it for Marilyn as a Valentine. And Roberts had no idea they had trouble in their marriage. He went over there various times, probably didn't see anything major. And he said to himself, "I put that in my mind because it illuminated for me various future, quote, conversations and situations." So what I'm guessing is, as the Misfits rolled along, because they were up there for like 3 months in Reno, and then they finished up at Paramount Studios in LA for 2 or 3 weeks at the end. No one ever saw Monroe and Miller really together much in public. They kept the veneer. They stayed in the same hotel room at the Mapes Hotel in Reno, and they try to keep things professional. But people noticed that they weren't really intimate anymore. It was kind of more on a professional level. So Roberts had no idea, and this is kind of the first clue. And when he says it illuminated future conversations and situations, this is what I think he's talking about later on. It kind of was was crystallized to him in his mind when he saw what was going on during the filming of The Misfits. So right away, Paula Strasberg was thinking, you know, I shouldn't have said that because these were private conversations and private things that she knew about Marilyn. But she said to Roberts that she really trusts you and she likes being around you. And later on, Lee Strasberg, Paula's husband, said that Marilyn said Roberts was like the brother she never had. And Paula said that Marilyn is the most complex creature I have ever known. And Ralph, you've only seen the light side of her, and you probably have this, you probably bedazzled by her, and that's great, everyone is, but she also has a dark side. And I'm not sure exactly what she means, but she may be talking about her depression and rumors of her suicidal tendencies. And she's kind of just warning him that what you see in Marilyn Monroe isn't everything that meets the eye. And kind of ended there. So she's trying to tell Roberts that you will eventually see her dark side, you know, so don't be too surprised when that happens. So this would have been Sunday. The next evening, Roberts gives Marilyn another massage, and the conversation comes up about him going out to Palm Springs, and he says, "Oh, I just loved it, had a great time." But in this particular session, she was talking about how she loved the desert also, and it was very relaxing, and it's like a solitary solitude, she said. Not sure what that means, but you know, when you're out in the ocean or out in the desert, you just kind of feel all the waves, or out in the desert, the breeze and the birds, and you're just kind of in contact with nature. And I think that's what she meant by solitary solitude. So she started talking about the Let's Make Love situation, the film, and she mentioned to Roberts that unfortunately they were not able to get Rock Hudson. She said that there were too many complications and too many commitments that Hudson had. But she did say that they were settling in on Yves Montand. Everybody were kind of in a consensus they would get him. He was a French actor, and she mentioned that he was across the corridor from her and Miller. With Montand was with his wife, Simone Signoret, and she was an Oscar-winning actress from France also. And I don't know if it was her who brought it up or Miller, but they were zeroing in on getting Montand to play in that role in Let's Make Love. And the interesting thing about that is that that would be the movie immediately before The Misfits, and there was a lot of, you know, rumors going around that Marilyn had an affair with Montand during the filming of Let's Make Love. So that's where this episode ends. On this particular massage therapy, she's discussing the situation with Let's Make Love and how they're going to begin filming. And that had all sorts of delays. And they had a lot of script changes in that one too. If you recall from my previous episodes, I talked about how that production of Let's Make Love went way beyond schedule. She only had like a week rest before doing the Misfits, so she's rushed up there, and then it's like super hot. Then it gets pushed back to, you know, late July. It's super hot. And then on the Misfits, they did a lot of script changes. So all these pressures were kind of encircling Marilyn. And I think that had a lot to do with the failure of the Misfits, because I believe it could have been a much better movie. The script, the screenplay was outstanding. Everybody said what a great story it was that Miller wrote. But I don't think it translated to the movie screen. So I thank you for joining me. My name is Ray Capote for the Misfits Mystique. Have a great evening. And as always, cheers.